Police Minister Bekele addressed residents in Gugulethu as the police focus on the high crime rate in that area. The Imbizo is part of ongoing efforts to combat crime in the area and enhance partnerships between police and community policing structures. Let's unpack this with the crime expert Calvin Rafadi. Calvin, a very good evening and thank you so much for joining us.
Good evening, Kwena, and good evening to the newsroom viewers.
Let's start with just the impact, if any, of these imbizos. What's the expectation? Do they actually serve a purpose?
Yeah, let me first take the opportunity to applaud the Gauteng detective serious and violent crime for the arrest, swift arrest of the guys who has killed Teboho Jola and his bodyguard. Now, the issue about Western Cape or even any other imbizos is that, communities feel that it's time for electioneering, and most of the MECs, including the ministers, they're only visible during this time towards the election. But, we've seen there were even imbizos at first before, but promises were made, and communities are very aggrieved. They feel that they are not listened to, and their grievances, they still, persist. And crime is still high. So
the big question then is, these imbizos, are they just talk shops, or is this an opportunity to, bring some sort of confidence to the citizens, the residents, to say something is being done?
Yeah, look, it does bring confidence, but if the community says to do a memorandum, all they are asking for is for, their kids to be safe, their communities to be safe, and even worse, most areas in Western Cape, like even Gugulethu, they are calling for the military to be deployed in the area because the area is under siege from criminals. So one can say, you can promise them new police recruitment and new buggies in the area. But if you hear their frustration most of the time, they say, no, a buggy takes too long to come and respond. And, some of the buggies that are seen in the area, they will walk in or drive into maybe a drug dealer's place or a high hotspot area place. And then it comes out, empty-handed. And then ambulances, at the same time, they are also under siege. Police, they need to escort ambulances to go into the area. So, in essence, there are more guns than even what you can recruit the police. So, but how did those guns come into the area? Youth are recruited. There's a lot of intakes of drugs, abuse of alcohol, and less of employment in the area. But what we are calling for, and what can be the solution, is to have a unit that can activate POCA, which is prevention of organized crime. The criminals that are well known, the big fishes that are even recruiting these kids or are fighting for theft or are bringing even mandrags to that effect, they need to be stripped with assets forfeiture unit and SARS, because it's all about them making money and not caring about the communities, to a point that even, young kids, they end up being victims or even recruited and having guns and shooting all over the place within the areas of Cape Town.
Is this a reflection of failure, maybe failure, not a fair word, but a reflection of shortcomings of the police in these areas that are crime-ridden, that they either are not well equipped to deal with this sort of issues? And if so, the role that the community can play. Not so long ago, the minister was talking about how the community should come forth and help the police in identifying some of these criminals because they know who they are.
Yes, and it cannot only be the effort of the police. Another stakeholder that needs to come on the forefront is Department of Justice and even Department of Education. When you speak of Department of Justice, in South Africa, criminals are even released on a Schedule 6. They get bail. Some are even released, earlier before they can even finish up their sentence because of we've got the clause of correctional service and the likes. But in essence, what I'm trying to say, Department of Justice and other even stakeholders, and even Department of Tourism, for instance, they need to also come on board and help in eradicating these particular crimes, because they even affected the tourism industry within Western Cape. They need to put up even police station to even every corner if it comes to a push and buy containers temporary containers so that, police are visible out there. And if it comes to a push, once they activate this poker, to this big syndicate, they need to have TRTs. They need to have even military on the ground because it looks like every second house there's a firearm. And we even heard that Cape Town, there's guys that even manufacture their own firearms. So we need to take out the guns from those communities and then have proper investigation and proper organized crime to act on these criminals.
A lot of South Africans complain about the issue of crime, and as you look into areas like Gugulethu, as you mentioned, Calvin, that it is a little bit extreme. And you talk about a collective effort, but do you feel that is something that can be done, can be won, and can be achieved? Because a lot of South Africans will tell you that they feel that the police have failed, and questions of also whether they are well equipped, well trained to deal with such issues. You mentioned earlier on even residents of the same Gugulethu talking about bringing the army because they feel that the police are failing.
Yeah, look, in the structure of the police, police have to be proactive, because in most incidents we see a reactiveness. Like, police, the communities, they'll call on a baki after somebody's being shot or they hear gun shootings. Those are the aftermath. Now, to deal with proactiveness within any crime industry, we need crime intelligence. Now, crime intelligence, they gather all the data and they've got the knowledge on who are the people who are recruiting these kids. And even in religion, we have to also look into those religion issues whereby even in schools where kids are recruited. But only crime intelligence can infiltrate, even go on corporate operation and gather all this data, and then they can work in partnership with the detective to eradicate crime. And we've seen in many incidents whereby you find there's a cash in transit and an official of crime intelligence, after picking up the spouse from a saloon, will come over and say, what is happening here? Brief me. Then they have to brief. A detective doesn't brief a crime intelligence. Crime intelligence brief the detective so that they can work together and eradicate crime. So we've got a problem of not having proactiveness in the industry of subs. But at the same time, we also call upon academia to have practice notes and help the police in a proper qualitative researches in every area, especially the hotspot, so that we can deal with the actual crime and the actual syndicates by even their names and eradicate them from the communities.
Calvin, we're going to have to be there, but thank you so much for joining us. Calvin Rafadi, who is a crime expert, as we talk about the imbeciles that have been called by the Minister of Police, Bheki Cele, who was in Gugulethu, just talking to the community there, trying to deal with the high levels of crime. Right.